And we're live.
Yeah, shit's recording, huh? All right, people, bear with us. This is the Somewhat Pro podcast. I'm Dom Termansen. This is my guy, Alex Charette. Because this is episode 1, we want to give a quick introduction to ourselves. Alex, we like a little background story of like us as a collective. Both played like college football in what was the CIS. Now it's known as U Sport. I met this guy in my first training camp with the Montreal Alouettes in the CFL. Come to become really close friends. Like, I think at this point, like, we talk like pretty damn regularly. So we figured, we might as well just start pressing record on this shit and get some good conversations documented. Alex grew up on the East Coast, where I grew up on the West Coast. Though, very far apart in terms of where we are in Canada. Similar lifestyle, similar habits. I went to the University of British Columbia, grew up in North Vancouver, product of like single mother. So like I moved around a lot, Vancouver, Burnaby, North Van is kind of like where I resided. I was a basketball guy growing up. So it wasn't until like grade 12 really that I realized that football was probably the best opportunity for me. And I really learned to love the game probably like, third or fourth year university. So I think my perspective to date is a lot different than like, those Pop Warner guys that have been playing football since they were 5. I think Alex is probably the same.
That's actually the exact same. Yeah, I was a soccer player coming over. So movement patterns even different. I started playing football in grade 11. When did you start playing?
Yeah, it was around the same. Like I definitely like dabbled in a little bit of everything when I was a youth. So like I played GSL football for a couple of years, and then like honestly, it wasn't for me. I was playing wide receiver. I was never getting the fucking football because nobody could throw, and so it was like running back or bust. And I was just like blocking for people. I was probably like $130 soaking wet. Shit wasn't fun. It was cold all the time. I'm like, I want to go back inside, man. This shit sucks. And it wasn't until like getting to grade 11 where I was that guy just defiant, not trying to play ball. And I had a coach like Farwan Sabeti, shout out to Farwan. He played for the Hamilton Tiger Cats a couple of years before he was coaching us, and saw me in the gym one day, essentially just like putting up like jump shots like after one of their practices. Wasn't intentional, and he kind of came in. He's like, "Hey man, like I heard a lot about you, and you're real stubborn. Like you don't want to play like football." I was like, "Nah, like I got hurt last time I tried that shit. It's not really for me. Blah blah blah. This is like my year to like get that NCAA Division I scholarship at like 5'10" and a half, 3/4. So he's like, I tell you what, like I understand that hustle, but it's your off season right now, so you definitely have the opportunity to play multiple sports. Let me make a bet with you, so to speak. And it was like, if I beat you 1-on-1, like you have to come out to practice next week. And I was hella arrogant back then, and I had been practicing. I thought I was one of the better players in the province. I was like, this guy, he's probably like 5'8" at the time. He's a muscular dude. I'm like, I've played bigger and better than you. Like I got no problem on this 1-on-1. Lo and behold, like this guy had some game, man. And like I put up some buckets, but at the end of the day, it was like 11-8. And he kind of just gave me like, you think you're all that, but at the end of the day, like I'm a better athlete than you, and I'm gonna just out athlete you to show you why like you can still learn some stuff from me. And that was all it took for me to get on the field. He showed me like super quick, like turning a crossover into like hesitation moves, getting off the line of scrimmage as a receiver, and I loved it. Like I just got a lot of recognition. I got a bunch of like contacts from like different universities across Canada, and I got to go to a camp with UW. So it was like, okay, clearly my ceiling's higher in this shit. And like now to date, like I just love to compete. So obviously I love ball. Rambling.
Well, yeah, since you rambled and I didn't.
Yeah.
So coming from soccer, I love Chelsea FC, Didier Drogba, like single couple black men playing for like the English Premier League. I wanted to be a striker. Samuel Eto'o is another one. Those guys are all retired now. Yeah, makes me feel old in that sense. But those are the guys that scored on headers. They use their elite athleticism on the soccer field. And they also had the skills to back it. See, the thing was I didn't really have the skills. There was no coaching. My parents just said, no, do whatever you want, like play. They were never the parents like into it. They didn't know anything. And I didn't really think about the CFL. I didn't even think about college football at all. And then when I was in grade 10, our our school team like won our city championship. And there's some like, I've always liked football. I always like playing in the schoolyard. I was always just naturally better than the kids. But, you know, as we'll touch on, like I grew up being like the one black kid in my elementary school.
Right.
I'm mixed, I'm Jamaican and Italian. So it was like both worlds. I sort of felt a little like I was treading some water there. But, you know, one black kid in my elementary school, 4 of us in my graduating class in high school. So it wasn't really, there was no, I was expected to be this athlete. And, you know, in soccer, it was like the same way. Like I didn't have the skill sets that all these Italian kids, you know, they won the World Cup in 2006. That was a good time for as I was growing up. And, you know, I decided to walk out and try out for football because why not? Exactly was my thought process. And I ended up like making a couple one-handed grabs, and the coaches were like all over me, and I wasn't that fast yet. And they were just like, oh, like, this, like they put me in, I was starting, and it was a varsity team like right away, like grade 11. And I just like was naturally just a lot better at this sport. And I've like liked the camaraderie that it brought me. And I was sort of looking, I'm like, I haven't gotten any offers for anything to do with soccer. I played defender. I wasn't scoring 4 goals a game. And that's a whole nother story. I could get into like how coaching and how they slot players and favoritism to like the coaches' sons are always playing striker and playing the best spots. That's another time for maybe another segment in this podcast as we get into it.
Right.
But once grade 12 hit and I was hitting the gym, everything came together. And I just had like my coming out party. I was getting like 2 picks a game. I was laying kids out. I liked the violence, and it was sort of something that was mine that none of the other like kids in my school like had. They all did rowing, which was big in St. Catharines, if you know, like the Henley Pond, rowing, hockey. You know, the basketball team was pretty good, but that wasn't my sport at all. That's a whole nother skill set than soccer. But at least I knew on the football field I could run. I just started scoring touchdowns, and you know, this is fun. Like the coaches are about me. You know, the buyouts, like it's about me. Like I'm scoring all the touchdowns. I'm the one in the paper. So I sort of started playing that way, and then I decided to do a victory lap. Got picked up to Guelph, and then sort of the rest is history. I became like a football player from that point on. I think it's interesting how we both started later, because that seems to be, I hear that story all the time from guys I play with throughout my pro career. It's like, yeah,
guys, man, they never make it.
I just picked this shit up in grade 11. Like, you know, like, I think so. It comes from my training background. I do believe like that multi-sport training still needs to exist in the world of sports. Like, I live in Oakville, Ontario. Like this is hockey. It's an NHL like city, and they have kids training on ice 4 times a week at age 4. And I understand the development is very important for that. But I think kids may burn out by the time they're 12. Like, oh, I've done this hockey. If all you know how to move is only hockey movements, I think there's a lot of research, and there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of good that can come out of, you know, hey, let them play some soccer, let them play some, you know, whatever, baseball, whatever it is, just another sport to stimulate the body, right? So that's what I know. Like
we said about like fundamental movement skills, right? And so, you know, trophy parenting like is good from, I guess, like a discipline standpoint. If you want a kid to like be focused and hyper focused at his craft, but when it comes to like, you know, developing all the possible skills that could apply to that sport, it would be nothing but healthy for that kid to play everything, because now he can take new parts of the sport that those other kids with the trophy parents don't have and bring a level of creativity to the game that like people don't understand. And that's what will help them excel. There's so many segues you can like go into based on like those backgrounds. But if I could ask like a question to kind of give what will be our audience, and obviously we'd like you to like and subscribe, all the things you can do to help this podcast, but specifically like your reasoning for maybe wanting to hop on here. You know, there's already existing podcasts with like NBA and NFL pros, and like there's gonna be some haters that are like, oh, you guys are like in the CFL, like what perspective can you give us that like an NFL player can't, you know? So like if you think of like what is super specific about you or about me that we could bring to this audience that's like slightly different, I think they're like, we could definitely pull a couple things. Like, what would that be for you?
It's just I guess even in football, like I've been sort of called like handyman and generalist. You know, I'm good at a lot of things. I haven't necessarily been like great at one thing. I haven't had that all-star CFL career at one position, but I'm backing up every position on the field, and that's sort of how I am in my life. You know, I dabble in a little bit of everything. You know, I love reading, I love training, I love yoga, I love animals. I've studied biology. I have a kinesiology background. You know, I have a political interest. You know, all those things sort of, you know, make me who I am, and it's a constant search for like just to build my own knowledge, because I believe like to be on this earth and to just not try to soak in everything possible and try to know everything you can, especially about the things that interest you, but even things that maybe don't, and it might interest you once you find it, sort of where I come from. And it's just like a general life experience, things that, like, I'm also a father. There's a lot of things that, you know, I've been experiencing at the age of 29, and I'm hopefully I'm not trying to stay stagnant in my life. And that's where, you know, if you're listening to me and you want to like learn anything here, it's the fact that I can bring you multiple different avenues of everything I'm dabbling in. I'm not just a football player. I'm not just a soccer player. I'm not just like, you know, I'm not just a student. You know, it's everything comprehensively combined to, you know, try to give back to you guys, and sort of, you know, even through this process, I'm also going to be learning too. So I'm excited for all this. What would you, Dom? You know?
Yeah, I think that like a lot, like at the, you know, the I Am Athlete, the and No Shots Fired. I love that fucking podcast. Things like all the smoke, you know, whereas NBA players talking about their lives. A lot of it is preaching and experiences that you can't really relate to. Where I think that like coming from like a second tier professional league, if we're realistic with it, like the CFL is sort of like that D League to the NFL, right? Where the drop off in talent, like, and this is something we talk about all the time, is like minuscule. Like every year we see guys come from the NFL that really aren't shit, that I will strap up, that Alex will route up, and you know who you are. You know, like it happens once a year. A guy comes, he gets cut from practice roster or whatever in the NFL. He comes and it's like, oh, you were that guy that fit the eye test, but I see why you're here. You know, and it gives you that confidence. And you see more and more Canadian talent going to the NFL. You see more guys like with like, you know, a deep CFL experience, whether it be 3 years, 4 years. Guys that come to mind is like Tavon Campbell, Brandon Browner, Cameron Wake, guys that spent time. What's the dude? Receiver, played for Edmonton. He was with the Bills now. Guys like Wayne Rose, you know, guys that like had to prove themselves in our game and then step into the NFL level. So it's confirmed. Like the level of talent is like here, right? And whether it's
if you do like to interject though, like there's that 15% of guys, you know, that the news is surrounded by, like Nuke Hopkins, like the best of the best, like some of those guys' talent. Okay,
I give it.
Like I'm not saying out here that I'm taking on Jalen Ramsey. I'll line up. I'm gonna line up against anybody.
Shout out Chase Claypool. You know,
I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying the CFL, but you take that 15%. I've heard this from guys. I'm speaking from guys who have told me this, that played in both leagues. Take that 15% out that everyone hears about, and then you have that next group of football players, and there's good football players in both leagues. So that's why I'm back there, because I don't want to take anything away from that.
Of course, and that's important to mention. But
crazy.
The point I'm trying to make with that is just that, you know, with such a minuscule difference in talent, people don't understand how different the game is. And if you can excel as a DB, for example, I can only speak from the DB perspective. In our game, like the field only gets shorter and narrower. And yes, the ball gets faster. Dudes are faster. Dudes are bigger. But from a conceptual standpoint, the game is simpler. There's less players to worry about. There's less moving parts. The hash marks, you can't reach out and touch them in the Canadian game. They're 14 yards apart. You know, in the American game, it's right there and it's right there. So the free safety can make true reads, you know. But where there is a huge difference is that check, you know. And so we're looking at the CFL minimum, and for the first time, like it was raised to, it's like what, 65,000 now, right? Canadian dollars. In the NFL, what's the rookie minimum? I don't even want.
$5 USD, 455,000.
It's right around 500,000 US, right? So, you know,
minimum, and most guys aren't really getting that.
Exactly, and that's the absolute minimum you can make for being an active roster guy, right? So, if you compare that to our league, the difference between the top tier, the Mike Rileys that are making close to $1 million a year, to the guy that's just like cracking the roster and making 65,000, that's a huge lifestyle difference, right? And so there's experiences that we have as like those, first and second year players where we have this pro identity to maintain, but we're really making an average salary. Like in Vancouver, you're not buying a house off 65 grand. Let's be real. Like, you know what I mean? So, being from Van and having that kind of stigma about the league has had me carry myself and in my immaturity be like hella defensive on, like, I know that I can't just like be this label and have people respect me. I have to have like more on my plate. And that's what's driven me to do like more things like with my off seasons, to always be striving to find like the next opportunity to put myself in a position where I'm not dependent on my league salary. The reason, like, a lot of the people that are playing in this league, like, unless they're making that like, 130 and above, like, they're really there because they love this shit. And so you see a completely different dynamic with CFL athletes compared to NFL athletes. I think I've been really fortunate in my off seasons. Like, I've been signed to a couple of modeling agencies. I did some film work, and most recently I've been doing some stunt work and some mocap with EA, like motion capture. And so like these are experiences that an NFL guy would never really be pursuing or even like think to like reach out to, simply because like, you play your 16 games or your 18 games, you go to the Super Bowl, you got 500,000 minimum in your pocket. Do you really want to do anything else for the rest of the year? So the perspectives are we might arguably have more to talk about. And I think like hopefully like over the few episodes that we do here, like we're able to touch on some things, and you can see like the value that Alex and I can bring in talking about things that are closer to things that you do every day, because our lives are very similar to yours. What is different is like, I think the training, and the like we said, like at the end of the day, I handle myself, or I treat myself as if I am the NFL pro. So when it comes to training, I'm out there 4 days a week. My nutrition, it should be on point. It's not always on point, but I'm working on that still. But when it comes to the discipline, I think that pro athletes have something that a lot of like, gym goers or bodybuilders just don't understand, is that like we're trained to perform. And at the end of the day, you can't take that day off because it might be your career at jeopardy if you do. And so we bring that kind of tenacity all the time, regardless of what the salary says. It's a lot of rambling,
Yeah, but that's what the podcast is about. We're just having like open, like real conversation. We'll have some topics to go through. But I just wanted to touch on that because we were talking about that last week, and I was giving you the analogy of like, I was like trying to explain to like younger kids, because I run a personal training business that's under like the name AC Athletics. I'm just in like the beginning stages of building that. And I talk to a lot of the youth athletes, and it's like sort of the bodybuilders. I'm not taking away from the dedication that some of the best of the best in any of those industries do, but there's no equivalency to like, say, mid-season, it's week 12. I wake up, my shoulder's sore from the last game, my knees are sore, I'm feeling bust, nervous system's fried. It's week 12, right? Like, I'm just begging for a bye week. And we all know that as pros going through that season, like what type of feeling that is. But then we're pros for a reason. It's, you wake up that day, you look at the script. Oh, we got one-on-ones today. Coach isn't happy. We're repping some one-on-ones. We got a heavy volume day. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to be able to go into that workout and do your bench press and sort of mosey through the workout and get the work done, and then at the end of the day say like, yeah, I hit my workout today, which some of those other types of professions or hobbies or whatever you want to call them, you do bodybuilding, training. But for us, I sort of take that whole, I have to have one-on-ones, and if I lose these reps, I may be out of a job. I may not be getting a check next week. There's no guaranteed salaries in our league, and so I got to wake up and I turn that mental position on in my head to go and get after it. And that's how sort of the tenacity that Dom was talking about, is how we attack each day. And that's how I'm trying to spread that into everything I do in my life. So.
Yeah, I think in terms of a job security thing, like I'm talking about when you're in that spot, like you're in that NFL roster, you're active, you're in that CFL roster, you're active. You're talking about a team with 32, or a league, sorry, with 32 teams versus a league with 8. So 9, sorry. We're in the if we're the D League, there's not a lot of team. There's nowhere to go after it. I mean, you can go to Europe, you can go to Mexico, but that's going from here to you're the best player on your team, but you're playing. I'm sorry, no offense, but it's like stuck to your talent because I've watched the film. And at the end of the day, like your job is very replaceable. So to speak to what Alex is saying about the gyms, you have those one-on-ones on Monday, you have those one-on-ones on Tuesday. Bro, you can't afford to put up bad film. So it's every day, what am I doing to make sure that I'm healthy enough to perform at my highest level? And I think, in that 9-to-5 job where you're sitting in the office, like if you were to be able to channel that energy, you're going to be one of the most productive in the office, right? If you channel that energy in pro sports, you're really just the norm, right? It's a necessity. Anyways, we have topics, and I wish I had them off the dome, but I'm going to read a couple out and kind of just outline like what we're trying to talk about throughout the week or throughout these episodes. What do we have here? So that was the intro, right? We have bet on it, because we might have a little like gambling side to us. We like to like make some predictions, and these are educated guests based on our sports knowledge, our knowledge of politics, our knowledge of business, etc. So we like to make speculations. Another one is that's a cap. There's a lot of motherfuckers talking bad shit out there. So we got to put them on here, put them on blast a little bit, and just like create a dialogue. Let's talk about it. If you feel a need to explain an experience that was a cap, you can talk about it in the comments too. We love to hear from you. Another one is whack as fuck, because there's a lot of things out here, especially in this new COVID society that we're in, whether it's rules, it's regulations, how celebrities are acting, how your friends are acting. Some shit is whack as fuck, right? And then, we'll call it a public announcement, but a lot of the time it's more like a message to the white people. I can say that because my partner here, he's got half of his bloodline, don't take offense to it. It's just, I think that coming from a perspective where, I grew up in like the whitest neighborhood known to man, which is not just Canada, but like North Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia, and you're coming from Guelph, Ontario. I think we have a pretty clear perspective and have been forced to learn the white perspective, but we're the ones dealing with all the ignorant questions. So rather than having to address every question one by one, lately it's just been coming at loads I can't handle. So I'd rather just address them on here. So bet on it. Shit. Tom Brady, man. I've been saying it for the last 3 weeks, bro. Never bet against the GOAT. So why would I do it now? New team, new conference, NFC champion. Gronk just coming into his prime again. I shouldn't say prime, but coming into playoff Gronk once again. We got Antonio Brown out of the woodworks. Talk about a W. This guy gets suspended, loses his girl, gets put on blast by every media network in the world or in sports, and ends up in the Super Bowl. You can hate all you want. He's out there. And they don't even really need him. Scotty Miller, Mike Evans, who they got at running back. They're interchanging the running back week. Doesn't matter, right? What are your thoughts?
I just, Tom Brady's won me some money this year, so I'm just gonna say thank you, Tom. But you heard the term when it's the passing of the torch. This might be one of those moments where from one GOAT to a future Hall of Famer in Pat Mahomes, and with that, Andy Reid, who's been to the Super Bowl. I'm talking about when he was on the Eagles. I'm an Eagles fan, but now he's back-to-back Super Bowl champ. He's trying to stamp his coaching career, and he's one of the he's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. And then you got Travis Kelce. You know, this offense, Tyreek Hill, who Scotty Miller thinks he's faster than, that's cap for sure. But that's, you know, that's cap. Like, there's no way. Like, how are you going to stop this offense? Who's slowing down this offense? Tampa Bay? I mean, fifth pass. You know, they have the fifth run defense in the league in the regular season. They're looking pretty good. But I'm going to have to go with, you know, the youthful passing the torch moment. You know, the whole Tom Brady needs to retire talk. It's hard to bet against defending Super Bowl champions. And Tom Brady has lost to Eli Manning twice. I'll put that out there. He can lose. And he lost to Nick Foles.
Yeah, I thought it was real controversial. Tony Romo the other day, like he was quoted saying something on the lines of, I'm trying to find it right now, but essentially like if Mahomes loses this year, in his eyes, he can never pass Tom Brady. And I want to agree with that because we're talking about, you know, a Tom that not only defeated the odds and I'm going to move to the other conference with the coach you said I couldn't win without, bring Gronk with me and make it back to the Super Bowl. I think you're already the GOAT if you weren't last year or the year prior. But on top of that, it's like you have a young Mahomes that has just come off a Super Bowl. So yes, he's a young quarterback. People are going to say like he's not quite in his prime, but what if this is his prime? You know, and this is his second year. There's no chance to make mistakes. They had, what was their record this year? I can't remember.
They had losses in the regular season when they sat everybody. They lost the record. That's it.
So you know, it's not like the guns aren't firing and they aren't putting up crazy numbers this year. You have a Mahomes that's pretty well in his prime, and you have Tom Brady. Let's be honest, like he's not as mobile as he used to. He's having one of the healthy seasons he's had over the last 3 years. But we're getting to the time where Tom, the Drew Breeses, the Aaron Rodgers are like, this shit hurts, bro. I'm out here to fulfill a legacy, but it's post prime Tom Brady, and if he beats coming up Patrick Mahomes for a Super Bowl this year, forever he's gonna be able to say, "Oh, you're calling him the GOAT, but I beat him last time I played." You know, it's like.
It's fair.
Yeah.
I almost like have to agree on that because if I have to I would say bet on that because if Mahomes have to win like 8 Super Bowls and be like 4-time like Super Bowl MVP and like that's a lot to put on the kid. I mean, he has the time, and if he follows the TB12 method, the GOAT's method of staying, you know, he's different. Like you see how he bounced back from that concussion, but you get a few more of those. You might not be playing when you're 43 to win 8 Super Bowls. So I'm going to be on Romo's side here. Like Mahomes, if he wants to stamp his chance to be the GOAT, you got to beat the GOAT. You know, like
exactly.
Everyone's main argument when it comes to like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, it's like Jordan never lost the finals. Like 6-0. That's timeless. Like how LeBron's done so much, and you're just like, but 6-0, and you just have to sit there sometimes and be like, well,
there's never been that marquee matchup where it's like Jordan leaving his prime with the Bulls versus LeBron James, like on the
little bit of Kobe,
arguably, but that was a young Kobe,
after the prime,
and
that was
at the
prime Jordan.
Prime Jordan.
So if I agree, like I bet on that 100%. That if Pat Mahomes wants to be the greatest player of all time in the NFL, if he wants that name, he has to beat Tom Brady.
Yeah, so that game's gonna be nuts.
Has to.
Like, it's 60, like at least.
Because if he does that propels him. Now he can tie with 6 Super Bowls. If they both have 6, only 4 more in the next 10, 12 years, 15 years of your career. You only have to win 4 more after this.
Yep.
No, because you beat the GOAT and you tied the GOAT's record. He'll probably have better passing records if he plays as long. That's Absolutely. One thing I like. But yeah, it's 100%. You can bet on that. If Pat Mahomes beats Brady here, he'll be able to be called the GOAT one day down the road. Like, longevity is overlooked. Like average NFL career is 2 years. Good thing you're getting paid $500K a year.
Right.
Average CFL career is 3. at minimum.
At minimum, you could end up working at Cactus Club. No offense.
Second one,
yeah,
is your Brooklyn Nets with your boy KD, which you say is the best scorer in the game.
Yeah,
Kyrie Irving.
I did hop the wagon, right? I've always been a Celtics fan. When Kyrie went over there, Kyrie's been one of my favorite point guards. So since that time, you know, in a new era, like I've just been so disappointed with like just the management over there, how they handled my guy Isaiah Thomas, just like the lack of restructuring since the big three. I think they had something there, and they kind of just let it disappear to Brooklyn. Actually, wasn't it? They all went there to finish their careers, and I thought that was going to be a little super team, right? When Jay-Z bought the franchise, they had Joe Johnson, they had Paul Pierce, KG. They were out of their prime, let's be honest. But the Celtic in me wanted that team to be successful. But now we have that, like, the real, like, big three in Brooklyn, you know? We have James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and KD. And people want to hate, you know? They want to say that that's not, like, a winning formula because you have really three guards, like small forward / guard. KD plays wherever he wants. But I really think that you're talking about three of the most prolific scorers in the game today. And even if it's just ISOs, that's a problem. How are you going to beat them 4 games in a row? 4 games out of 7, you know?
Anthony Davis.
That's what I'm talking about.
Who's stopping Anthony Davis? Who's stopping Anthony Davis on that roster? You're going to put the Slim Reaper in? He's going to get back down and big boy down there. That's what happens. All three of those guys, none of them are known for defense. When you talk about like the big threes of like Jordan, Scotty, and freaking Rodman, you know, all three of them were dogs on defense. And I know it's a new NBA, but like you're talking like, I mean, KD's going to score his points, but Kyrie's going to score his points. What if the other team's also just scoring with ease? You know, you're going to have to be having all three of them firing off all cylinders. So I believe it's still a hard matchup with the Lakers. And they can't play the full minutes either. You see them taking games off. They lost their opening matchup. I don't even know who it was against. I'm not watching too much basketball right now because I'm trying not to bet on it.
Okay, well, my answer to that, and this is foul trouble, but DeAndre Jordan. We can't forget about that, man. Yes, he's been coming off the bench lately because they like to play that small ball. But at the end of the day, come playoff time, we got some dogs for you.
I think trying to make a trade, too, to get another big man. Who was it? Andre Drummond? That might be a problem. Maybe.
I'm just you're right. I hear you on the LeBron. Like, I just can't see them doing it back-to-back. And it's been a while that we have, like, a legitimate contender in the East. I feel like there's been some B-list teams in the East competing for that finals championship.
Take away the quarantine ship by Braun because he played Miami Heat.
Well, guys that relied on pure athleticism last year, let's be honest. Like tenacity at its finest. You have hustlers, but you're talking about, what was it? I think it was first round sweep, second round, 5 games. Like, come, the fourth round, that final round, those guys were gassed and banged up. You can't have it that way. You have to have some stars on your team that are going to put up mad numbers in the playoffs. And Brooklyn is the first team I see, though I would have said the same about Milwaukee last year. They just really disappointed me. I feel like Giannis has been like that next up superstar for the last 5 years. I'm tired of it. Man. Like, take over the game then. Like Jason Tatum, man. I'm tired of it, bro.
I'll bet on this. I'll bet on Brooklyn gets far, but comes up short. As a lot of first-time Big Three teams, all the pressure's on them. LeBron's chilling right now. They're just doing their thing in LA. There's some other good teams too, like teams that have been together, building that team chemistry. And you're gonna tell me that, Kyrie Irving with his, there's a lot of theatrics still to go down. They're coming off like a lot of hardened theatrics.
Yeah, I think they're 8-2.
I know Grant's on revenge season, so he's the one I know he's probably more locked in than everyone. And maybe Harden has some like new motivation. And it would be nice for Kyrie for him to beat LeBron again. But
I think what is a motivator, you know, people want to talk about James Harden's defense all the time. Last year, his defense did not disappoint.
He's getting like
You know,
3 steals a
he
game.
definitely listens to the criticism. And so, you know, things like Shaquille O'Neal has been roasting James Harden for the last 2 years. I think I heard
everybody. He needs to chill.
If he doesn't do it this year, after being the guy and bringing everybody he needed or wanted to Houston, and he has the audacity to gain all this weight, to be showing up in clubs requesting trades, and then ends up on the squad with Irving and Kevin Durant and does not play some defense and does not win a championship, he's Carmelo Anthony.
I'm with the whole, like, I've heard the speech a million times. Like, if that's not who you are, you think you're going to turn it on when it's time? You think he's just going to – you think you can just flip a switch and become an unreal defensive player when it comes down to the –
Well, the thing is, people forget this too, right? The connection that brought James to Brooklyn was OKC's connection, the OKC connection, right?
And what happened to OKC's big
out of the picture, who's a little bit selfish, if we want to be honest. That's a similar problem, right? And now you have him not coming off the bench. You have him starting with his guy KD, man. You see what they're doing, bro. 8-2, last 10 games. I'm betting on it.
Just needs
if I lose, I'm blaming.
KD needs this roster. It's his only chance. He needs to be surrounded by other Hall of Fame.
Not to mention, shout out to my guy Steve Nash, bro. Okay, I used to read for this guy in high school. He used to come to North Bend. Fun fact is our strength and conditioning coach, shout out Tom Larish. He used to, I think he used to date Steve Nash's daughter. That'd be a heady subject. But I used to.
I've been through it already. You don't need to.
Nash knew who they were going to, but he used to sign these wristbands, sign all these jerseys and stuff. And I low-key got recruited to my high school because I went to a different high school in the 8th grade. But my mom coached at the high school. And Tom was always like, yo, give Term these wristbands, give him these Steve Nash autographed jerseys. So I grew up loving Steve Nash, man. And rightfully so, 2-time MVP, arguably the best passer ever, you know, and a cerebral mind. People don't realize he was involved with the Golden State Warriors championship runs. Like, he was the player development guru out there, and working with these guys one-on-one. Kevin Durant loves him. He's now the head coach for the first time in his career, but it's not like he's coming off a non-coaching pedigree. The guy's been mentored by the best of the best, and Steve Kerr and the like, you know. So I'm really excited about what's kind of brewing there. And unfortunately, because of all these fucking blacked out games, I haven't been able to tune in like I want to, but I'm watching the highlights. James, I like how you're getting crazy assist numbers right now. 13 assists. I love that shit. Keep doing it. We don't need you scoring until the playoffs. You need to find a way to win games without putting up crazy numbers, because you're taking away from everybody else's offense, and you have two guys that are arguably better than you that have gone deeper in the playoffs, won championships. So listen to them. Let them show you the way. All respect to James Harden, though. I hope they win a ship. I'm going to bet on it soon. But LeBron
said you can't bet against the GOAT.
Can't bet against the GOAT. We were just talking about that. LeBron James, and all respect to the king. Just want different every once in a while.
You get that 2K vert max thing when they had that in the old 2K, where you could dunk and it'd be like 30. So I want to see if he's still jumping that 44, because you got to be close still.
And a small note for my guy Steph Curry, because I see you out there, bro. What was the last game? Who were they playing? I think it was who were they playing? I think it was OKC they were playing, and he had that no look pass back to the corner three, the exact same spot LeBron shot his corner three no look.
Yeah, but LeBron did that because Curry already did that. Look, Curry did it again.
And that's what I'm saying is Curry's been doing that. But he kind of gave because there was nobody behind him, where LeBron had a full bench and there was apparently a bet on the sideline. Curry just did it to be yo,
I do this.
Don't forget, I showed you how to do that.
Shooter ever.
Just remember, I do this on command. You had to really channel some energy for that. This is second nature.
How many did Curry make in a row? What was that record he did? And Steve Kerr was I'm surprised he missed or something like that.
He missed, yeah, disappointed.
With
it was stupid amount of threes. That's what
stupid amount of threes. I don't want to close anything. No, but Work on our segues. Keeping it basketball though, I saw this grade
105.
105.
5 consecutive 3-pointers. Man, and then Steve
I
Kerr
can't
goes
even
on.
hit 105. Give me like hours. I'm tired before I can hit that many.
What?
Period. Like not in a row.
I bet you a couple of those were no looks too. Like he's just messing around. But I mean, that's an argument for trophy parenting though, because we're talking about a Steph Curry that
Seth
we're
is 100% from the free throw line right now. 100% from free throws. That's muscle memory. Oh, but keeping it basketball for sure. I don't know if you saw the video. It's going viral now, but it's a grade 4 was playing with the varsity team, like grade 7s and 8s, and just crossing people. Yeah, this little female. And another shout out. I don't know her name. I need to do some research, but I saw an alley-oop in women's D1.
Okay.
So, she's 6'3". That means she's got some vert on her. So the argument comes in of what these, prominent WNBA players are saying about their salaries need to be higher. I think they get, what's their average salary? If you can pull that up for me, like that number. But I know some of them are getting paid 400, 500K a year still, which is a nice living. I
want to say it's around 80, the average.
The average?
79,000.
So if you talk about like why the NBA, if you research like why the National Basketball Association makes so much money, just even watching like the Last Dance like documentary and how like the Bulls really like boosted, like Scottie Pippen signed that 7-year deal and looked like a fool. Well, like that was only because like his team brought worldwide attention and the world is watching these games
over that last couple of years. Yeah.
Boom, like 90s, fucking 2005 revenue for the NBA. I would like to see that number because it's going to look like GameStop or some shit, like the way that went up, right? So it's like we come from, a league where we explain how the talent level, there's guys that could be in the NFL right now. There's guys that were in the NFL, and our pay gap is significant. And it's because, we're in Canada. People are going to Maple Leafs games, Toronto Raptors games, soccer games. Then, the Canadian Football League, cool. So we get paid based on how many people watch our games and come to our seats. So I believe like just because a parent league or another league around you is making million, like the 12th man on that bench is making freaking 10 mil a year chilling.
I hear you, bro.
It doesn't just mean you get to make more money. It's a business at the end of the day.
Without saying it, what you're saying is WNBA athletes asking for NBA salaries as a cap.
That's cap.
Because you need to find a way to generate some more revenue.
What's the difference in revenue between the Williams sisters and Rafael Nadal? People watch the Williams sisters play. And I think it's, as a business, if they're selling, they get paid, just like in regular business. And I know they're touching on like the gender equality with the wage gaps and all. But I think in this one instant, if we're talking about sport and business, how much you're getting paid is based on how much your business is making.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one too, right? Because yeah, like the gap, like you're saying, is significantly different. You're talking about Nadal making 107 million versus Serena making 88 million, right? And I'm sure that like in tennis, the winnings when you compare like genders are significantly different. But where the money is made in all sports is in endorsements and advertising. And being an individual brand, the female athlete can still reach out to. And they touched on this, I think, in I Am Athlete. They had a WNBA athlete on there, and she was talking about this. It's like part of the barrier is the fact that like brands that are supposed to be like female-oriented brands, like lingerie companies, pads, hair care products, like beauty and products, they're not talking to these athletes. And there's a disconnect there where people realize the profit based on like the the idols that these NFL and these NBA athletes have become. And I think it is the league's responsibility to be reaching out for those specific endorsements. But when it comes to the advertising, we all know that like the commercials and what is airing in between these NBA games that billions of people are tapping into, like I think a lot of teams, they have those crests as of the last like 5 or 10 years in the NBA, and those simple symbols of like I think the Clippers have Bumble. I think the Warriors, I can't remember theirs, but they're paying like $300 million a year for those. So if you add that in and divide it amongst the amount of players that are on a roster, it's 14. It's a no-brainer to figure out how these guys are making millions of dollars. And simply like if you want to stop like these athletes from making absurd amounts of money, stop watching the game, right? And the argument is a little bit skewed because you're talking about, yes, like there's a disconnect between the average salaries across leagues. Yes, it's about revenue, but also like from a viewership standpoint, I don't think that women are supporting women's sports any more than they're supporting men's sports. In fact, they're probably watching a lot of them are watching exclusively male dominated sports, or they're watching the NBA games and not the WNBA games. There has to be a level of self-accountability. And that's not to say that like on all levels, everybody's salary should be raised. Like the minimum, I think Kobe Bryant's done a lot for the game of basketball in, rest in peace, the GOAT, or one of the GOATs, but in changing like the face of women's sports for the better. I think since the NBA had changed their minimum or had agreed to raise their minimum, a lot of leagues across the globe for women's sports have changed. And I think that we need to find a way to bring more attention to the game, but to mandate like a shift in funds in an area where we don't have that revenue it's kind of a cap. It's like, okay, you want to complain about it, but like let's work together to find solutions. Without getting canceled, because this is a hot topic. Let's talk about another cap. Man, one that's been bothering me is 40 times. Okay, I went to the CFL Combine. We do laser, which is like, in my eyes, the only official test. And if you go to a pro day and NFL scouts are hand timing you and you hand time like a 4.4, I can respect that. But when mans are running 4.7s and 4.8s laser and they want to claim their 4.4, bro, that doesn't fly, bro. Like, we need to host a combine where, you claim you're a 4.4, show up. All right.
This is where I'll come from the perspective.
We'll hand time it too. And
I didn't have a great combine day, and I believe I'm faster than what my 40 showed that day. But I've not once posted in my name or my handle saying I'm 4.4.
Right.
If I run one with a laser, maybe I'll show some people. But where I get my confidence in my speed is let's race. Like, let's put it on the table. I'm not going to say I ran a time. I'll put, like, you can watch me on film. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I'm not going to cap and lie about my 40 times. I had guys in high school lying about 40 times. What do you mean? You guys took steps and measured your steps by taking steps, and you sat there with a stopwatch, you ran a 3.9?
Right.
Someone said they ran a 3.9 in high school, bro.
Oh, it's like,
that's unofficial. That's a guy, but now there's guys in the pros that have gone to combines and ran a 4.78, and they'll walk around saying I run a 4.4.
Oh, and it's completely grandiose to think that you can get away with this, as if people aren't like able to just Google search like your combine results, and most of the time,
Alex 4.3 Charette
that are claiming their 4.4s. It's usually based, where exactly did you run this 4.4? It's like, oh, well, we tested hand times with my trainer I'm not gonna name any cities, or my dad is like, my dad clocked this time for me. It's like, okay, Google search what your time was at anything official, and it's like 0.3 seconds. That's slower. That's a cap, bro.
And
until you show me that you can beat me straight line, I would, out of respect for the shitty ass 40 time I ran, which was 4.6 flat. Honestly, it's not even that bad. That's realistic time. I'm gonna have to check you on that, and that's what I love about That's the Cap, man. We don't need to say any more.
That's it.
That's it. Whack as fuck.
I'll get this one rolling. No, it's whack as fuck. It's a lockdown in Ontario.
Yeah.
Doug Ford. I
feel pretty bad for you guys,
just
man.
Like, listen, I work at a gym, and everyone knows the benefits to your health, and your mental health, not just your physical health, that a gym can help you with. The knowledge, without getting too deep into even conspiracies or like the anti-mask rallies happening in Toronto and all that stuff. I'm not saying I support any of that, but what I don't support is misinforming the public. I think it's whack that no one's died of the flu this year. I think it's whack that you can be a massage therapist and work on somebody, but you can't train someone one-on-one in the gym.
That small grocery stores are closed.
I think it's whack that small grocery stores can't be open, where everyone now has to go to Walmart. And I also think it's whack as fuck that people in politics are now on the board of directors of Walmart Canada, specifically two, if you want to do your research, that stepped down from the cabinet, and now they're on the board for Walmart Canada. That's whack as fuck. They're just profiting. And these lockdown measures, don't want to have any insensitivity to people affected by COVID and the negative effects that have come from it. But I also stand here believing that this lockdown's it just can't be good for the mental health of everyone. And if we're going to lock down, then we should have been locked down since the beginning instead of just reopen. But then lock everything down. We're all going to Walmart, so now it's just it seems like that's just a higher percentage of things. You're just locking down the small businesses. And I remember even reading this one little tidbit, which you can maybe fact, may not be fact, it might be cap, but the fact that the government was only giving out certain loans to small businesses just because, but you have to sign over your ownership, part of your business. You have to give up part of your business that you created to get this loan because of the government restrictions, which as well.
No. And some people want to claim we sound like conspiracy theorists when we talk about the hidden motives behind this vaccination push and etc. I'm not saying that the government created COVID, but there's definitely an opportunity when a pandemic is released and it is killing a certain percentage of the population and it is a dangerous virus, to now leverage, okay, how do we want to mess with the economy? How do we want to have people fall in line? And with a tactic of instilling a little bit of fear, you can have everybody regulated, where now in Ontario, they're issuing these digital IDs, right? People are considering vaccination passports. Small businesses are taking massive hits. Big business are getting interest-free loans. It's there's a lot of moves here that are supporting very specific demographics, and everybody else is told, oh, you're terrible for staying at home. It's or you're terrible for not staying at home. It's out of necessity of survival and needing to find a job, I need to go out there. I need to get a haircut. I need to go see my family to stay mentally sane. I need to get whole organic foods. I can't be shopping at Walmart for produce all the time. And there's such a lifestyle change for us, but for that 1%, there's always seems to be this loophole where, oh, well, you're going away for business, so that's okay. And oh, you're going to see this family member, or you have a visa, you're okay to travel, and I just don't know what to believe anymore. It's every time we have a new vaccination, there's a new strain that kind of defies
all. 5 new variants now, so
where we have
locked down for all of 2021 now because all the variants So that's whack as fuck.
And I think it's an all or nothing approach that you need to take with this. Is like you said, like you can't tell every small business or every business that they need to shut down, but then everybody needs to shop at this one store now. Well, doesn't that defeat the purpose? Because we're all in this store together now, like, and it's like there's way bigger of a population going on an hourly basis, and like you don't have like the capacity, like the employee capacity to like be sanitizing everything properly. The most terrified I was in this whole thing was like at the first wave of COVID, when I really had no idea like how serious this was. Like, am I gonna die from this shit? If I get it, and then I've calmed down since, seeing like how many young people or people that are healthy like myself that have actually gotten COVID and like had no side effects, what have you. But like I was hypersensitive at first, and people were dying in old folks' homes to where I didn't want to go out, but I need my groceries. So that trip to Superstore, bro, was terrifying for me. And it's like, that's what really got me thinking, is like, is this really a better solution than keeping all the grocery stores open and having like social distancing rules? And it seems like, yes, we need the economy to survive. So one thing that I've been involved in is like the film industry. And yes, the film industry has a ton of money to like pay for COVID tests like every week, and bless the COVID tests right now because like they pay you for them. But it's like, it's unfair that like, the film industry just gets to perform and do all their shit whilst everybody else is like, you're working from home, like don't leave the house, like shame on these people for going and seeing their friends. Like, I just hope we figure this shit out. But for me, like either we shut down or we don't. I think it's ridiculous that, we shut down Ontario and we shut down Quebec like we have right now. Like it's like you said, you're in like almost full lockdown mode, right? Here, man, everybody's still out. Like people are, the Whistler cases just quadrupled over the weekend because it's like time to go skiing again. People head to Kelowna. The Airbnbs are technically illegal, but people are still finessing.
That's where I'm coming from. With the whole like you're locking down people, but yet people are flying to Tulum, Mexico. People are flying to Hawaii, and they get to come back. So I understand like Trudeau just put out a new travel ban, which was, well, not banned, but like if you travel and you come back, you're stuck in a hotel for quarantine and you're stuck with the bill for the hotel. And right. So when they're regulated, then you have the people saying, well, this is bullshit. This is a one step closer to a police state, where they're going to have government officials holding people for traveling. That's against our constitutional rights. And now the government with Trudeau are being sued. So it's like, it's just, it has to be all or nothing. Like, I don't believe that, people who are like this is affecting lower income and smaller and people starting to start businesses and entrepreneurship. This is affecting those families the most, minus the families being directly affected by the virus. And if you want to talk about financially, like, the US is pretty bad with their stimulus checks, but like most people can't live off $2,000 a month here in Ontario. Like I'm getting $2,000 a month. I can't work. I can't do anything unless I have like a crazy online business already going. And my rent in Oakville for a one bedroom, $1,700 a month, and I'm getting $1,800 a month in CERB. So it's like, where's the rest? Like, how am I buying food if I am going to Walmart? And that's like, I'm not even in like the effect of like a multi-family home with like multiple children or people trying, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think it's just it's affecting that middle to lower income class, even like more than anyone. And then you have people in like the upper class that have the money and they're going on vacation during this time. That's whack as fuck to me,
Whack as fuck, man.
What do you got for your whack as fuck? Or are we?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it simple. What's whack as fuck is these hedge funders and these rich ass 1% motherfuckers complaining about this GameStop movement. Y'all made a living off betting on other companies failing. You guys have billions of dollars in your pocket, and you're about to complain about you losing. I know it's billions of dollars. I know it hurts, but just let us get some. At the end of the day, like, you will find a way out of this. You always do. And what you don't have in cash, you have in precious metals, you have it in Bitcoin, you have it in real estate. You know, you've been able to compound your interest annually over 100 to 200 years. You know, let the millennials have this moment. You know, it's not going to last long. The fact that you're kicking and screaming about this and
Just
blaming
bullshit. That video is awesome.
is whack as fuck.
You can't be doing that.
You know,
This
you
is real
guys are
trading.
telling us to invest, and we finally we finally get together and we decide we're going to invest in things that we care about, which is going to the movies, video games, music, you know, and now like it's not right and it shouldn't be legal for us to do that. And even like these free trading companies are restricting like our ability to buy now, right?
Yeah,
It's
I know.
like,
I'm cheesed.
that's
I'm
why
trying to get in on some of that.
I know I was in late, but I wanted some of that GameStop shit, you know? And
I didn't see myself.
I think it's absurd that like these companies, Robinhood, etc., can get away with that, you know? And there's a lot of whack as fuck. I think I'm just gonna leave it at that. White nationalists, whack as fuck.
Storming Trump.
Should still
Trump.
cool.
Trump himself. Whack as fuck. Sorry, not Trump supporters. This podcast probably isn't for you then.
Exactly. Yeah, we got a lot. We got a bone to pick with you. It ain't even a left versus right thing, though. Like to me, lately, far right has been sounding like very racist. You know, because you know to turn a blind eye or still debate like the scenarios that have gone on and like the difference in treatment, aka like as an example, like storming the Capitol, you know, compared to like BLM at the Capitol, like two completely different worlds we're living in. And to not acknowledge that, I think that like you can hide behind like slogans like all lives matter or you know, consider what's going to happen to our taxes in comparison to human rights. It's just like, yeah, I don't fuck with you. It's whack as fuck.
It's whack as fuck.
Whack as fuck, man.
That's a perfect thing to segue into between the lines, as we're both, we're avid readers. We're gonna do better. We want to do better. I think everyone should be reading more.
Let's talk about
less. Scroll less. Read more. Okay, but on this topic of with everything happening with BLM and everything like the last year.
So I'm a competitive motherfucker, and so I didn't read a whole lot. I'll be honest with you. Like I read when I needed to in school, textbooks, etc. Until it was like kind of like the start of this whole movement, like COVID, probably early February. I heard this quote, and it was who was it now? I think it was Tiffany Haddish. She was saying how like she hears it all the time that like if you want to hide something from a black person, you put it in a book. I was like, oh no, like you can't. It's true because I don't read, but damn, I'm reading now. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna let that be the truth. And like since I started tapping in and forcing myself to get through that period, I think it's important for us to speak about like this literacy thing because it's a big thing that like especially the millennial generation is missing out on. I've heard so many of my friends be like, oh, I don't need to read books. Like I'll just listen to podcasts. And it's like, yes, podcasts are super informative, but it's a different. You're training the brain differently to sit there and consume text, right? Like being able to consume text at a fast rate is training your brain to consume information just way faster. And even reading a podcast or listening to a podcast, will be helped and aided by like your ability to just process things faster. And how do you practice that? The easiest way to practice that is through reading. The special thing about reading, which is different from podcasts, is like podcasts are still affected kind of in the early stage of podcasts, kind of unfiltered. Now everybody except for us right now has sponsors, right? So at the end of the day, like the Joe Rogan podcast, super informative. But if he says anything that like Spotify isn't fucking with, he gets canceled. So obviously he has to tiptoe around certain topics. When you're going to read a book, like you get to choose what the fuck you want to read about, who it's written by, and you can read them completely unfiltered in their own right? And so it's important that everybody pick a book.
There's also like the people that want to be like, well, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I do both. Yeah. I read a lot as a child, lost my way a little bit, cared about different things, back on it now. And I'll listen to audiobooks when I'm driving or if I'm doing like some yoga, whatever it is. But there's different learning processes. There's like auditory learning and like visual learning. And if you're only, you know, I've done it multiple times where I'm listening to an audiobook and I start daydreaming, and do I go back and re-listen to what I just missed? Like 10 times out of 10, probably not. Like I just continue on. I'm like, I'm getting the gist of this. Whereas if you're reading a book and you zone out, like you're like, I got to restart from this beginning of the page. I feel like that reading portion is what really, and if it's even like, it doesn't need to be like a hard book, like you're reading off your tablet or on your phone, but it's just some actual like book reading, not just like pop culture, like articles, like that still counts. But you need to dive into some text of what these authors are trying to teach you, because they wouldn't write the book if they didn't have something nice to say or something good to say that is worthwhile. And so the most recent book that I actually just finished was called Color of Law, and it did touch on how, you know, during this Black Lives Matter process, protests and everything, everyone was going, like looking to me in specifically my area, my town, some of the people around me looked at me and thought they could just spark up conversation every single day about what's happening in the United States. Thank God we live in Canada, or, you know, same questions over and over, same conversations where I'm tired. Like, I don't want to talk about this. I've just been thinking about this all night. What do you mean? So good book if you want to learn about how systemic racism existed in the States and put African American and Black people in the United States in the position they are today. Instead of using the old like, oh, why don't they get educated, or like they choose to live in those groups, they choose to live in that area, as the Color of Law, because it talks about how the government's racially driven policies throughout history since the Civil War created ghettos in the United States, and how the government should be held responsible for fixing that, and not just saying, oh, it just happened throughout history. And it's very informative. And you finish that book, if you want to get educated and, you know, be anti-racist, it should be on your reading list to learn about how the government policies push these way. Like, it's not like people didn't want to live in this low income housing; they were forced.
We talk about a lot.
If you move to a suburb in 1950 to a nice, if you did manage to get the mortgage, which was already a bunch of hurdles, if you did manage to have that job that paid enough to get that mortgage, which was already a massive hurdle, and you finally move your family there, which hopefully there's a school around that you can bring your kids, your house is getting bombed. So it's like, it explains all the different aspects of that. And it's a very good read.
Well, people have a hard time understanding, like here as an example, like, you know, I think we deal with that in the same light. Like, growing up in a predominantly white community, you get a lot of ignorant questions. When I was younger, a lot of them just kind of like I ignored, and I thought it was like young kids learning to be like mature adults. But really, like, you learn quick, like in adulthood, that stigma, those racist ideologies still exist. And where does it stem from? A lot of time it was coming from the parents. Like, I deal with parents on a daily that still have that like the blinders on as to what is really happening. And one thing that like I am just kind of starting to understand myself is, and I think is important for everybody to understand, it could be a learning opportunity for people here, is just the difference that like of BIPOC compared to other like ethnicities. Like, yes, I've always appreciated like connecting with like my Chinese friends, my like Iranian friends, etc., like in North Van, because those are very prominent ethnic communities. But there's a significant difference between being like BIPOC, which is like Black and Indigenous people of color, compared to like other ethnicities. The key point is the fact that, you know, people are coming from their land, right? Whether that be China, Iran, etc., and they're migrating. Yes, they were oppressed. Yes, like they have strong cultural identities that we appreciate in having strong identities as like Black males, or strong identities as Indigenous men and women, etc. But the difference being that like you do have a land to go back to, right? And you have an understanding of what the culture is in that land, because it was very recently that you migrated. And you were like, there is obviously some examples of like Chinese slavery when you talk about the railroads and stuff, but for the most part, the difference is like, you know, for American Blacks, it's being taken 300 years ago against your will and being brought here as slaves, being taken from your land, essentially. For indigenous people, it's being in this land and then having it stolen from you, and so all these like resources that you're entitled to, all of the
land wealth, like
land, and like um, colonizers have come over and profited of, to this day, like profit billions of dollars off of the common thing. I went to a First Nation school on the North Shore, and everybody wants to talk like bad on like and obviously it's gotten better as we become more progressive, but people want to talk badly on like the First Nations community. Oh, they're bums, they're alcoholics, like they struggle to get a job, they're always fighting, like they never make it off the res, etc. But they're ignoring all of the systemic things that put them in that place. It was colonizers that brought over blankets that got these guys sick with smallpox and made the population heavily diseased and killed off some of their strongest. It was the introduction to alcohol came from, for the most part, like those same colonizers, the English and the French, that came over and they say, hey, cheers to us. And though we're all like immunized based on our existence with these diseases, here's smallpox, here's liquor. And so now you have a community that's like highly like susceptible to like alcohol diseases and has a problem dealing with alcohol. You have a community that's like very ill in terms of infection and disease. And then you also have like systemic things such as like residential schools that have put people in these places.
Segregation, like that's modern day segregation still.
Their identities have been taken from them, and you're saying you need to assimilate to our culture. And then what today still exists is the nicest communities on the North Shore have been gated up and labeled the British properties, right? Or the Meadowlands, etc. And then the res communities some of them are waterfront, and there's been a lot of like reparations in that space, but it's still like kind of the lower end of the spectrum in terms of like properties on the North Shore. And that's just not fair. You have pipelines going through like traditional reserve land that people are still fighting to this day. And it's the same rhetoric that Black Americans are getting in the States, that like, oh, like, we need to stop all the rioting and looting. Well, why are they rioting and looting? Because it's a rights violation. This land was given to you on like a treaty, and you don't really own it, but you're taking it, you're leveraging it, and you're making billions of dollars off pipelines, et cetera, year after year. And so to have those conversations with people that don't understand it is super frustrating. But I hope that like this is a platform where we can kind of like dive into those things, talk about them more. To not understand, like to say that like Black people need to like help themselves and consider Black on Black violence. It's like, well, consider the fact that like those like selling drugs and leveraging like your success over another Black person's success in the States has been the only opportunities to have success in certain communities, right? Like in the States, you're talking about things like redlining in the book. You're talking about things like the difference in compound interest, like the difficulties in getting loans. There's so many things at play. And so to make the legislation equal is not enough, and there needs to be like a stronger push to even the playing field. And if that means like putting or prioritizing like Black banks, prioritizing Black business for like an extended period of time, like that's something that could help a lot.
Yeah, one of the solutions at the end of the book, he was even talking about just so very few Black families got to profit off the housing boom of the 50s, 60s, and 70s that all the white homeowners benefited from and still benefit to this day. And his solution was, well, and it's not a realistic solution because there's a multitude of issues to try to get this done. And there's still people that, are like rich off this that are going to say no, and they're the majority. That I should be allowed to buy, say, a house for $75,000 today because that was the rate I would have got it back then, and let it appreciate to $330,000. Like that would be one way to sort of allow us to buy houses at the rate we should have got them in the first place. But just even making that happen, sort of ridiculous. And some of it'd be very hard to do. And some of the ridiculous stats that I heard even like in the book that I was telling Dom last week was just like inheritance for Black people. And if you're talking about segregation and like the right to vote and all that stuff, that was 50 years ago. That's not even one lifetime. So you go back 2 generations, 3 generations of not owning, having absolutely nothing, and being a slave. You know, that inheritance for the average income has gotten closer. It's like about 60,000 for, I'm quoting from the book, $60,000 American for the average white family, like $37,000 American for the average Black family. That's gotten a lot closer since, you know, being a slave. But the average like generational wealth or inheritance a white person will receive is approximately $143,000, and the average inheritance a Black person, any male or female, will receive in the States is $11,000. If you're talking about 10 times difference, and when you said that stat, I was like, that's actually crazy. And how we talk about generational wealth going forward versus, you know, even competing against each other, trying to one up each other. It's just, we got to create generational wealth as like a whole community, because that's the major gap. Just saying, oh, the pay wage is, look at the average salary income for a household is closer, like it's not as bad. It's like, well, from the last 200 years, like we don't have any generational wealth. And that's sort of something that a lot of the people I've talked to like don't understand. And that's just one stat. Like,
well, and that's partly the media's fault too, right? When you talk about like the most prominent leaders that are like vocalizing this, like on like today's channels, you know, and they say that like Facebook and Instagram, all these channels, YouTube, are like channels for free speech. Well, when it comes to white nationalists, yes, like say whatever you want. Oh, it's freedom of speech to be against like the uprising of Black communities and like ethnic communities, indigenous communities, whatever it be. But when it comes to like, you know, some things like the Nation of Islam, you know, in the most prominent of Black communities, like these guys have had high representation. When even like in the Muhammad Ali era, the Joe Brown era, to date, like guys like some of the best vocalists in hip hop, which is like Kendrick, J. Cole, 2 Chainz, Jay-Z, all these guys are mentored by Louis Farrakhan, Nipsey Hussle, you know, but Louis Farrakhan is not allowed on Instagram because he's considered a terrorist, you know, based on his ideologies. But the thing is, if you're able to tap in and find those resources or find his mentor or his mentees that are on those channels, what you realize is that he's preaching like really healthy stuff that would help our community prosper. One of the examples being like, even if you haven't been to like Brooklyn, New York, or anywhere in New York, just the example of how we can help ourselves, and not in the sense of like everybody. He talks a lot about like we can't keep killing ourselves, right? Black on Black violence, but that's a conversation for us to have as a community. It's not a conversation for the white people to use against us, right? What he talks about in terms of generational wealth is if you look at like the poorest of Black communities in the States, example, like parts of like of New York that are still like highly impoverished, you see community and corner stores in those areas that are run by other ethnicities, right? You never see like a Black owned corner store. What you see is in a Black community, a Chinese owned corner store, and you see an East Indian owned corner store. And so when you go to those respective communities in New York, Chinatown is beautiful. And like the Indian communities in New York or close to Brooklyn are way nicer than the communities where these guys are actually working. And that's a matter of, you know, the Black dollar that we work hard for. And I work all day and all night to go and buy said chocolate bar and bag of chips. And I go and spend it where? At this corner store. And so this guy's taking that and he's putting it back into property taxes in his own community. So it's the idea that like if we want to accelerate the rate in which like and get ourselves to an equal playing field, there is a little bit of self-accountability, and it's making sure your dollar touches another Black family member. And the same can be said for like our white audiences, etc. Things like to flip the channel, like I switched to Tidal, you know, for my music streaming. Everybody's roasting me. Why are you on Tidal, bro? Like, you know, they don't have as many songs, all this stuff, and it's an extra $4. Well, it's an extra $4 because they don't have the resources that these primarily white-owned businesses have had for generations. It's Jay-Z and a band of like Black supporters trying to create a platform that is obviously for the culture. And so for me, like an extra $4 every month times 12, $48 to support a company that I know is going to be giving back to the Black community is a no-brainer. And if everybody was to make that switch from Spotify, even though it's $48 for me, everybody on Spotify made that switch to Tidal, we're talking about like a big generational change. And you know that money is going to be going into the right places. That's like, obviously, like it could be a stretch, but it's an example of like how quickly we can make the shift in this era, right? And little things that we can do that can go a really long way. I don't really want to segue into another read, but it's a generational thing, and it's a opportunities thing. Is like I'm reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is like, sorry, I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad because we got to talk about the books we finished. You know what I mean? Like people think we're picking up books and reading 10 pages, nah, cover to cover, all right? But in Rich Dad Poor Dad, like a lot of his come up was opportunities that myself, specifically as a Black male or a young millennial, will never have the opportunity to do. He's telling me, oh, like jog around your community and find properties that have been for sale for over 3 years that are depreciating at like 20%. Buy them at super low cost. And then I'm in Hawaii 40 years later and all these businesses have appreciated by $1 million. Like that won't happen to us. So we need to be a little bit more creative. We need to find ways, which is like probably the stock market, probably innovation on automated cars, wind and solar energies. Like there's a lot of ways for us to come up still. And I think like Bitcoin is like the new version of real estate, perhaps, where like people can make those big swings.
What about Dogecoin? Dogecoin.
Dogecoin. I need to learn more about it, to be honest. I've heard some
that joke, like, but it's like I saw Elon Musk tweet just Dogecoin, and I'm dying. And it's like I saw a meme where like they had like the Doge, like the dog, the main almost like a Shiba, like on a rocket, like next to Bitcoin and like another thing, and it's just like
taking off.
Yeah, the new currency, and I'm just like, well, and there's a government like I just wanted to like say that I was just laughing at the opportunity that the internet and online world is there to offer, and there's many different ways to come up. It's not going to be jogging around your neighborhood and maybe say in like a bad light, like you could get shot doing that, so don't do it.
Yeah, you hear about these stories in like West Vancouver, which is like per square foot one of the most expensive places in Canada, and it's people that have been sitting on their properties. Oh, how much did you buy this for? $110,000. What's it worth now? $7 million. Like that is not our opportunity anymore. You know, in Vancouver, like you're saving up for what is your entire life if you're 9 to 5 to buy a shack. And like for you to make a bigger come up, like you have to be a little bit more innovative. You have to realize what the trends are now, which is exactly what we're talking about. It's like coming into like this new world of AI. It's this new world of like automated cars, different sustainable energies, etc. Different forms of currency. You know, there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I think a lot of people, especially in Vancouver and Toronto, are dwelling on, oh, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. Well, it's like if that's your mindset, yeah, like stick to like thinking that your salary is going to pay for a house. Like it's a lost cause, you know. But if you can be positive and like, wow, all this innovation's happening, how do I tap into it? You're going to find your nut. It's just about that constant hustle, that constant search. I think the realest thing that Robert Kiyosaki is like the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he talks about like the pressure of the creditors and essentially like pay yourself first. So the idea that, you know, everybody says, oh, like at the end of the day, like I don't have the ability to save. And you need to switch your mindset on it. It's like, how can I save? One of the opportunities or solutions he provides is making the creditors give you that pressure. So if you force yourself to pay yourself first and you take that money out of your checkings and you put it into Quest Trade or you put it into your savings account that's locked and you can't touch, well, okay, that money's gone now. And the creditors are still going to call your ass for that debt, for that credit card payment, for that student loan. It's OSAP for you. It's just BC student aid for me. All this stuff. It's like, how do I make those payments still? Oh, well, I guess I got to go drive an Uber. I guess I got to go book some more jobs. I guess I got to go like teach some fitness classes, whatever it be. You realize, okay, like going and doing that stuff wasn't that hard. And this extra 2 hours, like, I usually just spend it like chilling on the couch. Those opportunities do exist, but it takes that kind of like, pressure makes diamonds, so to speak, and you need to put yourself out there before you realize those. But I think it's been a good year that way. The example for us is like we literally got canned out of more than 75% of our salary, right? Like with the CFL, like we didn't have a season this year because of COVID. And it's an example, like, WNBA wants to complain about a minimum of 80 or an average of $80,000. Well, guys are getting paid like probably what at the end of the day is like 20,000, 25,000. You had to find a way to make that money, bro. And that pressure is what got us all realizing that we're more than just football players. We can go out there, we can personal train, we can host events, we can network, we can act, we can model, we can go and work at a bank, like whatever it is for you, like you're never just defined by what you're kind of doing in the moment, so yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
We don't have an outro yet.
No outros, huh? Well, let me just take a moment of silence for our sponsors.
Yeah.
You guys mean a lot to us, and I thank you for all your continued support. Always open for new opportunities, and you know where to reach us. For those of you that are looking to stay more engaged with us, my Instagram is NIQUE Vancouver. Fitness page is DomYVR. Alex, you got your handles too.
Alex Charette, 17. Really simple.
Yep, Alex Charette 17, and then like some shout outs. As much as we want you guys to stay engaged with us, like I think there's a lot of good things that I'm tapping into regularly from like a podcast standpoint, from an Instagram standpoint. And so if I was to give you like one off the dome that I was thinking of today was Brother Fariz. This guy, he's a CSCS trainer, and like we work with a lot of CSCS trainers around. And at the end of the day, like a lot of these like strength and conditioning certifications, they're literally like month-long, week-long certs that are based on your academic background, what have you. So what separates trainers is like their dedication, their hands-on experience. And this is a guy that's coming up with a new exercise literally every day, but it's functional. He has a kinesiology background. I can't remember if it's bachelor's or master's, and he finds exercises that just kind of like push you from a creative level. Like they challenge you to think outside of the box into how can I take an exercise that's incredibly fun and make it functional to my sport. I don't know what sport he played. This guy's explosive, man. I want to see what his 40 time is. I know he's not going to cap about it because he's going to be held accountable by his 100,000 followers, So shout out to Brother Fariz. You can find him on Instagram. I'm sure he has a YouTube page too. I haven't seen that yet. Another guy, Akeem Pierre, local guy. Man, when Akeem used to play basketball, he doesn't like to talk about it, but this guy, like, I thought I had I swear this guy jumped at 50 inches, bro, because he's like 5'7", but this guy was like head over the rim type of dunks out of grade 12, and he went to UBC, he had a stint at TRU, but now he's into like holistic health. Specifically, he's an ITAL vegan, and he has his own brand, which is Rich Soul Foods. I pick up my sea moss from him, but it's that whole conversation about consumption, right? And like for him, like consumption is his religion. So it's not about like when people think consumption, they think about like different foods. Like mostly he's talking about every like realm of consumption. Who are you hanging out with? Like you are a product of like the 5 people you surround yourself with. What kind of energies are you consuming? How are you talking about yourself? What's your self-talk like on top of like, what's your mineral balance? It's not always about the calories you consume because the minerals are the foundation. And so I want you to tap into Akeem Pierre. He's a good guy. Alex, any shout outs?
There's both BC boys there.
Brother Fariz, I actually don't know where he's from. I want to say like Pennsylvania. I just came across him on Instagram through all the other pages I follow, and it's one of those guys that I'm always tapped into because it's like, man, this is function. I love using exercises in the gym.
I'll keep it BC this time. I'll give a shout out to the Kings of Hustle, Jordan, Justin,
the Herdman brothers.
Yeah, the brothers. Dominating the CFL linebackers. These guys actually, I just got like a nice message from Justin about training some kids out here in Ontario. Thank you for that. These guys, they run one of the best football skill development programs. I see their videos all the time. They're out there. They're hustling themselves, but they're getting their kids to hustle, and they're always coming up. They have full breadth of knowledge of football background. Okay, two guys are gonna be like they're all stars.
And they got that logo. Man.
They got amazing merchandise. I've already picked up a couple sweaters, a couple shirts. I got the wristband on right now. And another thing you may not know, I don't know Jordan, but I know Justin. He went to school for biomed. Like if this guy wasn't playing football, he'd probably be a doctor by now. So
biomedical
give a shout out to.
You said that was Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both did bio because I played with Jordan in BC.
Okay,
they're
so
both
medical. Both have biomedical degrees. So being trained
and
by the smartest, the hardest working, and like beasts. They live it and they teach it. So just shout out to Kings of Hustle.
No, like that's no bullshit. I know for a fact. Like Jordan, after every practice, extra 15 minutes of tackling straight up because I'm about that life. And every day he's coming after me like, "Term, you said you wanted to do this. I'm here again." I'm like, I don't really want. I'm kind of banged. So, just because you said it, I'm coming with you. So yeah. Brothers,
big shout out to those guys, man. All right, I think that concludes episode 1 of our podcast.